Welcome back to The Deep Dive. I am so glad you are here with us today because we are about to step out of the bright, sanitized light of the modern day and descend into something much darker. We're going back to a time, or perhaps a specific feeling of a time, where the air conditioning was non-existent, the cigarettes were unfiltered, and the moral compasses were, let's say, magnetically interfered with.
That's a good way to put it.
We are talking about a city that feels hot, thick, and heavy. Imagine a wool blanket draped over you on a feverish night. That is the vibe we are living in for the next hour.
It is a visceral atmosphere. We are cracking open a case file titled Crystal Blue Persuasion by Dixon Kinqade. And honestly, this isn't just a story or a simple report. It's a masterclass in atmospheric pressure.
Right.
The source material describes the very bricks and asphalt of the city as feeling sick, as if the urban landscape itself is coming down with a flu.
Yeah, that line is amazing. The city as a sick patient.
It sets a tone of physical and moral decay right from the first sentence. You can almost smell the ozone and the stale rain on the pavement.
And in this sick city, we have our doctor, or, well, maybe our surgeon is a better word, Jack Dillon. He's our protagonist, a private investigator working out of one of those anonymous, nondescript buildings that seem to exist solely to harbor bad news and bad decisions.
Really the type?
Oh, yeah. He's at his desk, minding his own business, probably sweating through his shirt given the heat, when the inciting incident walks through the door.
The dame.
The dame, the classic noir catalyst.
Yeah.
You cannot have a story like this without the entrance of a woman who spells trouble.
Exactly. So here is our mission for this deep dive. We aren't just going to recount the plot of Crystal Blue Persuasion. I mean, anyone can read a summary.
Sure.
We are going to analyze the specific investigative methods Jack Dillon uses, how he actually thinks, how he processes information under duress. And we're going to peel back the layers of the relationships here because there is a fascinating work-wife dynamic that rivals any modern office drama I have ever seen. Oh, absolutely. And we have to talk about the unwritten rules of the underworld, because this case file is unique in that sense. It involves the mob, hitmen, kidnappers, and high-stakes blackmail, but it doesn't end in a shootout.
Which you totally expect it to.
You do. It ends with a conversation. Understanding how Dillon navigates that social terrain, the diplomacy of the gutter, is the key to understanding the whole genre.
It's diplomacy with a threat of violence. I love it. So we have the source material, Crystal Blue Persuasion. It documents the case of Crystal Riley, a missing photograph, and the Sebastiani crime family. Let's start where all good noir starts. The client and the hook.
Let's set the visual. Crystal Riley walks into Dillon's office, and Kinqade does not hold back on the description. He wants you to see her, but more importantly, he wants you to feel the impact she has on the room.
He really doesn't hold back. This isn't just a woman walking into a room. It's a tactical strike on Jack's libido. She is described as a sultry brunette, smoldering brown eyes, jet black hair.
Oh.
She's wearing a blue satin dress. And Dillon, in his internal monologue, which we are lucky enough to be privy to, describes that dress as reminding him of a well-tailored fig leaf.
That metaphor is doing a lot of heavy lifting. Let's pause on that for a second.
Okay.
A fig leaf. It implies shame. It implies Eden. It implies something that is barely covering the original sin. It immediately sexualizes her while suggesting she is hiding something fundamental. It frames the entire interaction as a temptation right from the start.
It's a great point. It's not just she's hot. It's she's temptation incarnate.
Exactly. And then you get the animal imagery. He says she moved with the graceful, easy swing of a satisfied leopard.
And he notes, for a small leopard, she had pretty good spots.
Which is, well, it's the femme fatale trope 101, but with a twist. Usually the femme fatale is a predator, a spider weaving a web or a snake in the grass. Here, she is a leopard. It implies power, danger, and a predatory nature, but satisfied is a curious word choice.
Right, satisfied, like she just ate or she always gets what she wants.
Yeah, but what is fascinating is the duality of Jack Dillon here. We get access to his internal monologue, which is, frankly, pure lust. He compares her to a 1930 Panther model with just the right amount of curves. I mean, he is mentally undressing her the moment she steps across the threshold.
But externally,
Mm.
He's a stone wall. He's the professional.
Precisely. And that is the core conflict of the hard-boiled detective, isn't it? He has to separate the man from the machine. He pushes those thoughts aside and tells himself, that's my job, that's what I do, that's who I am. He is actively compartmentalizing his biological drive to maintain his professional edge.
Because if he lets the lust win, he loses the case before it starts.
He loses control. He has to be the observer, not the participant, even though every instinct in his body wants to participate.
He tries to compartmentalize. But then they start talking, and the banter, the dialogue in this file is electric. It just snaps.
It really does.
She makes a massive faux pas right out of the gate. She says, word on the street is you're the best dick in town.
Which, in the vernacular of the time, obviously meant detective. Dick was common slang for a private eye, but obviously.
Obviously, it lands differently. Jack chuckles, she turns bright red and corrects herself to private detective.
But that moment is so important. It breaks the ice. It shifts the power dynamic. She isn't just this untouchable leopard anymore. She's flustered. She's human. She made a mistake.
And Jack pounces on that vulnerability with this cynical charm. He tells her, I bet a girl like you needs a lot of protection.
It is a negotiation before the actual negotiation. He is establishing dominance. He is saying, you are in my world now, and in my world, you are the one who needs help.
And speaking of negotiation, we have to look at the economics here. Jack quotes her his fee, $35 a day plus expenses.
$35 a day.
For a modern listener, that sounds like lunch money. You can't even get a good steak for $35 now. But we need to contextualize that right.
We absolutely do. In the era this is set, $35 a day is significant money. That's an upper middle class salary if you work every day. That's serious cash.
So he's not cheap.
No. It establishes that Dylan isn't a grime bucket detective sleeping in his office because he's broke. He values his time. He charges a premium. But Crystal immediately crumbles.
Yeah, she just deflates.
She admits she can't afford it. Kinqade writes that she gives him a look of distress that Jack compares to a little girl finding out her kitten died.
That's quite the pivot from satisfied leopard to girl with a dead kitten.
It is. It shows her range, or maybe her manipulation.
It's probably both. And she tries to leave. Now, a purely business-minded detective, or a purely cynical one, lets her walk. No money, no case. That is the rule of business.
Right. You don't work for free, especially in a dangerous profession.
But Jack Dylan breaks the rule. He stops her.
He stops her. And he agrees to take the case without upfront payment. He suggests they can work out a payment plan.
And we need to pause on the subtext here because it is incredibly heavy. He says, I prefer an obligation to be fun.
Or something. That's the qualifier he adds.
Right, or something. By modern HR standards, that is a lawsuit waiting to happen. It implies a romantic or physical repayment later. It's predatory, isn't it?
In a modern context, absolutely. It's coercion. But in the context of the noir genre, it's part of the mating dance. It frames the transaction not as commerce, but as a favor between a man and a woman.
And she doesn't seem offended by it.
No, she giggles. She calls herself a nice worm for the early bird. She engages in the play. It suggests she understands the currency she is trading in.
She knows her beauty is leverage.
Exactly. And she's willing to use it because she has no cash. She is bartering with the only asset she has available at the moment.
It's a transaction of aesthetics. She's banking on him finding her attractive enough to risk his neck. But let's pivot to why she is actually there. The flirting is fun, but the stakes are life and death.
They really are. She's in genuine danger.
She outlines 2 specific attempts on her life. This isn't paranoia, this is a pattern. First, a man followed her home and tried to force his way in. She managed to scare him off.
And the second was much more aggressive.
Yeah, a man jumped out of a car trying to physically abduct her from the street.
And this brings up a massive theme in this genre. The ineffectiveness of the police. She went to the cops, right? That's the first thing a normal person does.
She did. And this is crucial for the listener to understand about the world of crystal blue persuasion. In noir, the police force represents the system.
And the system is always either corrupt, incompetent, or just indifferent.
In this case, indifferent. They dismissed her. They thought she was just a singer looking for a publicity stunt.
They gave her a token patrolman, but he was useless. Her apartment was broken into while he was supposedly on duty.
So the message is clear. The institutions that are supposed to protect you have failed. You are on your own.
And that is why the private investigator exists. He is the last resort when civilization stops caring. He is the privatization of justice.
Exactly. The PI operates in the gap where the law fails. And just as Jack is accepting this burden, the threat stops being theoretical and becomes immediate. The phone rings in the office.
I love this scene.
It's such a classic trope, isn't it? The bad guy calling at the exact moment the hero takes the case. It's almost supernatural timing.
It really is. Jack picks up, and it's a thug on the other line. He warns Jack to drop the case, or his relatives will be visiting the morgue.
This is a character test. A rational person hangs up and tells the client, "Sorry, too dangerous, go hire an army."
But Jack isn't a rational person in that sense. He reacts with aggression. He tells the guy, "I'd like to help you spit out all your teeth."
Spit out all your teeth. That is so visceral. It tells us something really important about Jack's psychology. He hates bullies.
He hates being ordered around. It's an authority issue. The threat actually backfires. Instead of scaring him off, it locks him in.
Yeah, it becomes personal.
It does. He takes the case now, not just for the girl, but out of spite. He refuses to be intimidated by what he calls cheap thugs. He isn't just protecting a client anymore. He is defending his own autonomy.
So he's motivated by lust and spite. A dangerous combination.
A very dangerous combination.
But before they can even leave the office to start the investigation, the dynamic shifts completely. The door opens, and we have a new player. Enter Casey Dixon.
The partner. And the visual contrast here is so deliberate and stark. We just spent all this time talking about Crystal, brunette, blue satin, soft, curvy, leopard-like.
Right.
Dixon walks in, dynamite, little blonde, black satin sheath, sharp, professional.
It's light versus dark, or maybe fire versus ice. And Dixon walks in on them in a clinch. Jack is literally holding the client.
It's a compromising position, to put it mildly, and Dixon's reaction is fascinating. She doesn't scream. She doesn't cry.
No.
She plays it off as professional concern. She says it's bad for business. But Jack, who knows her better than anyone, spots the flash of jealousy in her eyes.
This relationship, Jack and Dixon, is really the heart of the agency, isn't it? I want to dig into this triangle.
Yeah.
Dixon isn't just a secretary.
Far from it. She owns 40% of the agency.
40%.
She's an equity partner. But she also acts as a secretary, his cleaning lady, and the carryout lady who brings him dinner. She manages his entire life.
She essentially functions as his wife in every capacity except the romantic one.
That's a perfect way to describe it.
Jack tries to defend his flirting with Crystal by saying his reputation for being sympathetic brings in business, which is a nice euphemism for, I like women. But let's talk about the game they play. Because reading the file, it feels like they are married in everything but name and intimacy.
It is a classic work-spouse dynamic amplified by the isolation of their job. They act like enemies sometimes, bickering, snarking, but they are best friends. And the source material gives us a deep psychological profile here.
Yeah, it does.
Jack is divorced. He views marriage as a mistake. He has a very specific quote about it. "I got tired of giving her all my love and taking all her crap."
That's a very cynical, transactional view of love, isn't it? I give love, I get crap. Sounds like a bad business deal.
It is wounded cynicism. He's been burned. And Dixon. She's described as smart. And in this world, smart for a woman often means she doesn't rely on a man. She discards men like yesterday's paper.
So you have two people who are terrified of being vulnerable again.
Exactly. So they create this arrangement. They're both single, they're attracted to each other, that sexual tension is palpable, but they never cross the line.
They play a game of envious observation. They date other people and pretend not to care, but they watch each other like hawks.
It's a safety mechanism. If we keep it playful, if we keep it as just business partners who flirt, nobody gets their heart broken again. It maintains the status quo. It's safe.
This really culminates in that scene later that night. We have to jump ahead briefly to the bedroom scene because it explains so much about their bond. After the client leaves, Jack and Dixon end up sleeping in the same bed.
But it's crucial to note, it is platonic cuddling. It is intimacy without the act.
Which is almost more intimate, in a way. To sleep beside someone, to trust them with your unconscious self, but not to make it sexual.
I agree. It shows absolute trust. And they wake up, there's a pillow fight, and Jack tries to initiate something more. He tests the waters, but Dixon shuts it down.
And then they have this conversation about fantasy.
Yes. Jack admits he was fantasizing about her in the shower.
And Dixon calls him a sap. She claims she wasn't thinking of him.
But Jack suspects she's lying, and she probably is. The takeaway here is that Dixon is the anchor. Crystal Riley, the client, is the damsel. She's the fantasy, the dream, the chaos.
Right.
Dixon is the reality. She's the tough cookie who keeps Jack fed, keeps the bills paid, and keeps him sane. He chases the fantasy, but he comes home to the reality. Dixon is the one who locks the bathroom door, but leaves the heart open, just a crack.
That's a beautiful way to frame it. Dixon is the home base.
Mm.
So leaving home base behind, Jack heads out into the night to meet the client at her workplace. We are going to the Roaring Twenties nightclub.
The setting here is a character in itself. It's a throwback club. The staff and customers dress like it's the Prohibition era. Now remember the timeline. The Volstead Act was repealed in 1933. Alcohol is legal again.
So this is pure performance.
It is. It's a club cosplaying as a speakeasy.
It's nostalgia for a time of lawlessness, which fits the theme perfectly. Everyone in this story seems to want to live outside the law.
Well said. And this is where we see Crystal perform. She isn't just the scared girl in the office anymore.
No. On stage, she transforms. She performs as Crystal Blue. Jack describes her as becoming a goddess or a drug-induced hallucination. The power dynamic flips again.
Completely. In the office, Jack was the protector, the dominant male. Here, viewing her from the audience, he feels small. He says he feels ashamed, like Adam and Eden.
There's that Eden metaphor again. First the fig leaf, now Adam. She's like, she represents this forbidden knowledge or forbidden fruit that creates shame just by looking at it.
It emphasizes the hold she has over him. She isn't just a woman, she is an archetype. But reality crashes back in pretty quickly in the form of Rory Malone, the club owner.
The pudgy guy in the tuxedo. He pulls Jack aside. Now, usually in these stories, the club owner is a villain.
Yeah.
He's the pimp or the loan shark or the guy skimming off the top.
And Jack assumes that immediately. Malone offers to pay Jack's fee to protect Crystal, and Jack's detective brain goes into overdrive. He thinks, okay, this is the trap.
Yeah, he's looking for the angle.
He suspects Malone is trapping Crystal in a cycle of debt, advancing her money so she can never leave. It's a form of indentured servitude common in the rackets.
Jack actually gives a pretty passionate speech here. He gets defensive of her. He tells Malone off. But it turns out Malone is actually a decent guy.
He appears to be a red herring. He views Crystal as a daughter figure, or at least a valuable asset he wants to protect. He genuinely wants her safe.
And this conversation triggers a huge reveal about Jack's background. Jack refuses the money.
Because Jack doesn't need the money.
Not at all.
Exactly. And this flips the script on the gritty, starving PI trope we talked about earlier. Jack admits, internally, that he has a trust fund. He's wealthy. He works as a detective not to survive, but to avoid squandering his life.
He's a tourist in the underworld. Well, maybe not a tourist, but he has a safety net that nobody else has. He claims he's doing the case pro bono.
He tells Malone he's doing it for free. Malone thinks he's a saint. Jack knows he's doing it for lust, but it shows his independence. He cannot be bought because he already has money.
That makes him dangerous.
It makes him very dangerous to people who are used to solving problems with bribes.
Yeah.
He operates outside the usual economy of corruption.
So Jack and Crystal leave the club. They exit through the service entrance, trying to be discreet. But the bad guys are waiting.
A black sedan, the universal symbol of trouble in the 1940s. A guy jumps out. This is the attempted kidnapping she warned him about.
And it gets violent fast. The assailant pulls a gun. A .38 special. This isn't a threat anymore. It's active combat.
Jack's reaction here is very pragmatic. He doesn't try a karate chop. He doesn't try to shoot the gun out of the guy's hand.
Heroics.
No, he hits the dirt.
He kisses the pavement.
It's pure survival instinct. The assailant fires, misses, and because the shot attracts attention, gunshots in a city tend to do that, he jumps back in the car and flees.
This is the reality check. The threat is real. Bullets are flying. Jack realizes this is above his pay grade as a solo operator. He needs the law. So against his better judgment, they head to the police station.
And this scene perfectly illustrates the contrast in competence between Jack and the police. We meet L.T. Wallace and Set Lyman. Wallace is an old acquaintance of Jack's.
And Wallace is a total cynic. The first thing he asks is she dead? And when Jack says no, Wallace basically shrugs.
He cites jurisdiction. He says, I'm homicide. Call me when she's a corpse. It is bureaucratic coldness at its finest. It highlights that the system is reactive, not proactive.
Right.
They can't stop a crime. They can only punish it after it happens. Wallace views a frightened woman as paperwork he doesn't want to do yet.
Which is useless to the victim. They compromise, though. Wallace assigns SG8 Lyman to guard Crystal. Jack is skeptical because he knows Lyman. He calls him a skirt chaser.
And Jack's skepticism is validated immediately. This is the failure of the law in action. Lyman, the supposed protector, gets knocked out cold by the assailant shortly after they leave the station.
Just completely useless.
Utterly. Crystal has to escape on her own and run back to Jack's office.
So the police failed. The patrolman failed.
Yeah.
The homicide lieutenant didn't care. We are back to square one.
Yeah.
The private eye is the only option. So Jack has to actually investigate. He can't just punch his way out of this. He needs to use deduction.
He goes back to the scene of the crime, or rather, the scenes associated with the victim. First, the club. Malone reports a break-in. Nothing was stolen, except the dark room was ransacked.
A dark room. That's specific.
Very. Malone explains that club photographers take pics of guests, develop them instantly, and sell them. But the negatives are usually tossed. So why would someone break in and tear apart a dark room?
You're looking for a specific photo. Or a negative.
Exactly. Jack files that away. Then he goes to Crystal's apartment. He breaks in, because he's Jack Dillon, and locks are just suggestions, and he starts looking around. The place is ransacked. Messy. But he performs a Sherlock scan.
He looks past the chaos to find the anomaly.
He does. Walk us through this. What does he see that the cops missed?
He looks at the bathroom. He notices 2 sets of personal items. 2 toothbrushes. 2 different types of face cream. He checks the bedrooms. 2 different wardrobes, 2 different sizes.
Crystal has a roommate.
Precisely. And he realizes this roommate is the missing link. He calls Crystal, and she confirms it. The roommate was a photographer at the club but left town recently.
And the critical clue.
The roommate pawned her camera before leaving.
This is the aha moment.
Yeah.
Jack finds the pawn ticket hidden in the roommate's bedroom. Now think about this deduction. The bad guys aren't after Crystal. Crystal is just the roommate who got left behind.
They're collateral damage.
She's collateral damage. They are after something the photographer had.
For the camera. Or specifically the film inside it.
Right. So Jack rushes to the pawn shop. He redeems the camera for $100. Again, thank goodness for that trust fund, because most PIs wouldn't have a spare 100 lying around in cash.
That trust fund is the unsung hero of this story.
It really is. He takes the film to a contact, Maxine, to get it developed.
Yeah.
And this brings us to the smoking gun, the photograph. Describe it for us. What's in the picture?
In the foreground, it's innocent. An old man and his wife having dinner. It's a snapshot of domestic normalcy. But in the background, in the shadows, 2 men who look like weasels.
And Jack recognizes them.
He identifies one as the man who attacked Crystal and Lyman, but the other one, that's Lou Rigoletto.
And for those listening who aren't up on their fictional mob hierarchy, who is Lou Rigoletto?
He is a known hitman for Salvatore Sebastiani, the Don, the head of the local crime family. This connects the street thug directly to the top of the food chain.
So Jack puts it all together. There was a murder recently, Tony Scoletto.
Correct. Jack's theory is simple and elegant.
Yeah.
Lou Rigoletto and his accomplice killed Tony Stiletto. They needed a place to lay low immediately after the hit, so they ducked into the Roaring Twenties Club.
They sat in a dark corner thinking they were invisible.
And click. The roommate snaps a photo of the old couple.
And accidentally captures 2 murderers in the background. The mob realizes this. They want that film to destroy the evidence. They couldn't find the roommate because she skipped town, so they targeted the next best thing. Her roommate, Crystal.
It's so random. That's what I love about noir. It's not a grand conspiracy against Crystal. She just happened to be in the blast radius of a screw-up by a hitman.
It is the cruelty of fate. Wrong place, wrong roommate.
So now Jack has the evidence. He has the leverage. The question is, what does he do with it? Dixon, the voice of reason, says, go to the police.
Of course she does. She's the sensible one.
And Jack says absolutely not. He proposes trading the photo for Crystal's safety.
Dixon calls it blackmail.
Which it is.
It is blackmail. But Jack calls it a business transaction. And here is his ethical defense. He argues that the police cannot protect Crystal from the mob. We've already seen them fail twice.
Miserably.
If he gives the photo to the cops, Rigoletto might go to jail, but the mob will keep coming for Crystal to silence her or out of revenge. Jack says, my duty is not to the law. My only duty is to the client.
That is a defining ethical stance for a private eye. The client comes first, even if it means obstructing justice technically. He's privatizing the justice system to suit his specific needs.
It is the gray area where Jack operates. He believes in catching flies with honey. He prefers negotiation over violence. He wants to talk his way out of a shooting war.
So he sets up a meeting with the Don, Salvatore Sebastiani. He goes to Casanova's restaurant in Little Italy. This is the climax. He walks past the goons, sits down with the boss. The tension is high. The listener expects a showdown.
And here comes the twist of the century, the turn that recontextualizes the entire series. Jack sits down, and Sal looks at him and asks if he needs money from the trust fund Dad left.
Wait for it. Salvatore Sebastiani is Jack's brother.
Jack Dillon is actually a Sebastiani. He's the prodigal son, the black sheep, who left the family business, changed his name to Dillon, and tried to go legitimate.
That blows my mind. The detective investigating the mob is the brother of the mob boss. It explains so much about Jack's confidence. It explains why he wasn't afraid of the thug on the phone. It explains the trust fund.
It recontextualizes the entire story. The negotiation isn't a showdown between good and evil. It's a family dispute. It's Thanksgiving dinner drama, but with hitmen.
Exactly. Jack hands over the photo and negative. He tells Sal, "Your boys are harassing my client."
And Sal's reaction is great. He laughs.
He thinks it's hilarious.
He does. He didn't know Jack was involved. He sees the absurdity of the chain of events, the accidental photo, the roommate, the wrong girl. It's a comedy of errors to him.
He agrees to the deal because Jack is family and he owes him a favor. It's not a tense standoff with guns drawn. It's a brother doing a solid for a brother.
It validates Jack's philosophy. He used his connections, his criminal connections, to achieve a just outcome. Crystal is safe. The hitmen are called off.
But, and this is a big but, Tony Stiletto's murder goes unsolved, right? And the evidence is gone. Jack handed it over.
True. Justice for the murder victim is sacrificed for the safety of the client. Again, Jack's duty is to Crystal, not society. He allowed a murderer to walk free to save an innocent woman. It is a utilitarian calculation.
That is a heavy moral calculation. So the threat is neutralized. Jack heads back to the apartment where Crystal is waiting. And the outro implies he's looking forward to negotiations concerning payment.
The romantic resolution. But it leaves us with this blurred line.
It really does. So let's wrap this up with our final analysis. What does this case tell us about Jack Dillon and his world?
It highlights that in this noir world, the law is ineffective. The only way to find safety is to operate in the shadows, just like the criminals. Jack succeeds not because he's a great cop, or even because he's a great detective. He succeeds because he's a Sebastiani.
He fights fire with family.
Precisely. He escapes his past to become a detective, but he has to embrace his past to solve the case.
So here is a provocative thought to leave you with. Jack Dillon left his family to escape the crime business. He wanted to be a good guy. Yet the only reason he solved this case, the only reason Crystal Riley is alive today, is because he utilized his status within that very crime family.
It raises the question, did Jack actually solve the case as a detective, or did he simply ask his brother for a favor? And if you are the client, do you even care about the difference?
As long as the danger is gone, maybe the method doesn't matter. But it sure makes for a complicated hero. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Crystal Blue Persuasion. We'll see you in the next Shadow.